Okay. Well, good morning. So nice to have two completely different sets of people to look at the same time, which is, for me anyway, not possible. Um, we did a retreat once where we had a projector and a big screen that was behind the people in the room. And so at least I got to look in one direction. But after the retreat was over, everybody complained that I was never looking at them. And I think that was true. I think it was true. This hybrid system has the advantage, of course, that we get to sit together in person and you get to be with us, um, or we get to be with you. But it does have the disadvantage of either I'm looking at all your wonderful beings in your boxes, or I'm looking up here at a group of friends who are sitting around looking like a group of friends. Whatever. uh, so on the question of self, not self, there may be no more important question. Um, there may be no more important question because whenever I talk to anybody about how's life going, all answers are self-based. So that's a very clear indication that we, me included, are all preoccupied with a sense of self and what to do in order to make ourselves be happy. And that's really our driving motivation in life, is to be happy, uh, to have relationships that are supportive and loving and pleasant, to have work that's meaningful and to have nice weather. I went outside this morning to bring stuff to the car, and it's not raining. It was such a source of joy. Um, we really, really, really want this self to be safe and comfortable and happy. And of course we do. And how could it be otherwise? Why would you even want it to be otherwise? Oh, I think there's an answer. Why would you want it to be otherwise? It turns out that this sense of a self, this identity that we carry, this self-identity, is a tremendous source of grief. It's a tremendous source of grief because we actually live in a fairly inhospitable world. It's very, it was nice. No, well, maybe there's a bunch. One is um, that the sun warms the planet without any effort of ours. And when the sun warms the planet, we thrive. This is very nice, really nice. And we don't have to do anything. The sun does it for us. And it's pretty incredible. The other thing that's pretty incredible is I woke up this morning And there was air in the room that I was in that I could breathe. And I left that room. I went in the kitchen. There was air in that kitchen also. And then when I left that apartment, there was air in the hallway, there was air in the elevator, there was air outside when I got outside, there was air in my car. When I got out of my car at USG, there was air in this room. Still is. All of it without any effort on my part. Everywhere I went, air. Air to breathe, air to nourish me, air to keep me alive. Everywhere I went. That's really nice. It's a tremendous source of joy, which um, I'm afraid mostly we ignore. I would strongly suggest that part of our practice is the experience of joy every time we take a breath. Well, that would make us happy. We would walk around happy. So all these abundant gifts, gravity to keep us from floating away. Uh, um, my God, we have faucets in our house and flush toilets. It's insane. We don't have to hike up to the lake and get water, or to the river and get water and carry those heavy buckets. And we don't have to go to the bathroom somewhere and wipe ourselves with leaves, or not wipe ourselves at all. I have no idea what people used to do thousands and thousands of years ago. But I'm pretty grateful, you know. On the other hand, plumbers get paid a lot of money because sometimes those faucets and toilets aren't working, or they're leaking, which I guess is another form of not working. And the people we encounter um, have lives that, especially inner lives, that are fairly impenetrable. Even when we have partners that we've been with for decades, there's so much that's not said, so much that's not revealed, not even intentionally, just because how could you possibly reveal all that goes on? Something is going on internally 24 hours a day. Your partner would not be very happy to hear that whole narrative on a constant basis, nor would you want to hear it from them. So you learn to select what to say to each other. And oh, and there's a source of anxiety, a source of disconnection, selecting what to say to each other. Um, Even when we're being really open and vulnerable and deeply sharing, our ability to translate the inner experience into language that we express is limited. Language doesn't actually express things so well. And then the language, crosses space, hits the ear of the person you're talking to. I'm not sure what makes it there. Then it goes from their ear into their perceptual system, where we call it being heard. What you said is now being heard, but it's being heard by a perceptual system that perceives things differently than you, who created the language to describe what you're perceiving. We're lucky we communicate. It's really difficult. And then when we communicate and what we're saying isn't heard the way we had wanted to say it, even though we know we didn't quite say it perfectly, we wanted the other person to like get it. And then they don't, or they get something, but they also get it from a different angle because, oh, right, they're a different person with their own perceptions. And now, like, we're not really being seen. We feel hurt because we're not being seen by the person that we're being vulnerable with. Ouch. Ouch. And that's a moment of vulnerability with someone you know well and care about and who cares about you. And then you go about your day and you're interacting with all sorts of people who don't know you so well, who don't care about you so much, who are busy with their own lives and are listening to you with less effort and less focus. And so, yeah, not being seen, whew, that's a big one. That's a big one. And then that's a relational thing. Then we have bodies. We have bodies that don't stay healthy. We have bodies that, you know, there are childhood diseases, there are broken bones from, falls and encounters with things. There are things that happen as people, get into their teens and 20s. And then finally, as we're getting older and older, systems are all like, I'm pretty tired of all this, you know. Uh, and we have, literally hundreds of thousands, millions, maybe tens of millions of practitioners out there who offer various forms of trying to mitigate or even heal all the stuff that happens to our bodies. And we go to them and we want them to be successful. In fact, we want them to be very successful. And, they only have the resources they have. They're not, they don't have, well, some of them have magic, but magic also is, only can do so much because it is of our nature to age, to get ill, and to die. And all of this, even when we're healthy, makes us incredibly anxious. In a way, you could say it ruins our lives. All this anxiety, all this stress and tension. But it can't be otherwise. It can't be otherwise because when we take birth, when we become a living being, we take this on. We take on the vulnerability of being a being. When we rest completely in the sense of a separate self, then the only thing that is more prominent than the air we breathe is our anxiety. And our anxiety at its base is the reality that we're going to die, that we're going to get sick or injured, that we're going to get old and worn out. All right. And that people don't understand us. So if you look around the world, you could see that that tension, that stress, that anxiety turns to anger, turns to fear, turns to hatred. And then people do an immense amount of harm, an immense amount of harm, because they're frustrated and angry about something they really can't do anything about. It's our nature to be stressed. And we reject this. I, this separate self, am more powerful than that. All right? We see this in the world. I'm bigger than that. I can accumulate wealth and power and whatever else people accumulate as a way to completely block off my vulnerability, my angst, my stress. And it doesn't work. Those people are still filled with angst and stress. So then they go blame people. Ah, it's your fault. It's your fault I'm filled with angst and stress. If it wasn't for you, for this type of person, this race of people, this individual in your life, if it wasn't for you, I'd be stress free. Delusional. It's delusional. So, what's the point of our practice in all this? What are we doing? Well, the goal of this practice is called mindfulness. It's a mindfulness practice. But we're not supposed to be randomly mindful. We're supposed to have focused mindfulness. And what we're trying to focus on is the aliveness that we are. We focus on the abundance of air, the ability to breathe everywhere. And then you begin to focus. If you meditate for a long time and you get really focused on the breath, it becomes really obvious that it's not your breath. That breath is occurring. Sometimes it feels like you're being breathed. But even that's just, a formation, a way of seeing. The truth is, breath is occurring, period. Breath is occurring. Nourishment is occurring. Life is occurring. All the time. And it's not me. I'm not doing this. Oh, we have this whole fabrication, this whole story about our autonomic nervous system and, STEM and this and that. All we know is that certain aspects of our body are active when breathing is occurring. The conclusion that the breathing occurs as a result of the intention of particular parts of our bodies, particular systems in our bodies, that's a guess. We can see those systems are active. I just read a story recently about, now we know that when seeing the color red, everybody sees the color red because we can watch and we see the same parts of the brain light up. they're active while seeing the color red. Well, that's all you know. All you know is that certain parts of the brain are active when seeing the color red. There's no way to know whether what's being seen is the same from person to person. It's interesting and perhaps potentially someday valuable, useful in some way to know what parts of the brain are active when particular activities are going on. But to draw conclusions as though we know something. We draw conclusions because we think it's about us. We think that whatever is occurring, seeing red, breathing air, thinking, it's me doing this. It's me doing this. And as the only one involved, um, oh my God, I have an awful lot to figure out. I have a tremendous amount to figure out because I want to breathe well. I want to see red correctly and vividly, right? I want, I want, I want, I want, I want. Wanting becomes the prominent energy of life, both wanting in the sense of wanting something to be a particular way, and also wanting some things to not be a particular way. This wanting is like dependent on a sense of self, because all the wanting is the result of a sense of me. I want. I want. We're all still in that narcissistic phase of a young child, 2-year-old, who's like, mind ball, mine this, everything is mine, that's mine, that's mine, that's mine. You know, the astounding realization that these toes I've been looking at and playing with are mine leads to the assumption that it's all mine. And there is no one in our culture that holds this young child and says, everything is connected. There are no toes without connection. They're not yours alone. They are shared. Every breath is shared. It's not you you're breathing in. It's not you you're breathing out. Your entire body is fabricated out of pieces of the earth. You are nothing other than the earth itself, expressed in this form. You are not separate. There is not a molecule in your body that is separate, that isn't there as a result of the interactions of myriad things that are not you. Just because part of our practice is to see this, the connectedness, what Thich Nhat Hanh calls interbeing, that Thich Nhat Hanh says everything inter is. And we don't realize this. We don't realize that in every single moment, who we are changes as a result of the interactions, the relationships with the whole of what is. We are never separated. In fact, at this very moment, what you call your body is touched on every single, microscopic part of skin is touched by something. My feet are touched by socks, my legs by pants. Everything is touched by air. None of those things do I think of as me. And yet I am completely outlined and held and touched by not me. If not me were to disappear, if I snapped my fingers and made the entire universe outside your skin disappear, you too would disappear. You do not exist. Without the rest of everything, there would be no way to measure your existence. Your height would have no existence. If you're the only thing in the universe, there is no height, there's no weight, there's no color. If there's nothing external to you experiencing you, you're not there. You only exist in context, in connection, as part of. When we know this, we can breathe out and relax for a moment. We can take a break from feeling the individual responsibility of doing absolutely nothing but me. We can take a break. We can ease back into our seat and say, I'm being supported in every moment. In every moment, I'm being supported by everything that touches me. I'm being created in every moment by every thought, every bodily experience, every sight and sound and taste and smell, the knowing of all these things. All of this is creating the me. And as everything changes, just as the sun moving, or really the earth turning, changes the lighting. Moment after moment after moment, the lighting is constantly shifting. And since we are co-created by all these sense experiences, then we are constantly shifting. The lighting shifts, our bodies shift, our thoughts shift. We become someone else. The sense of self changes. The sense of self changes constantly. When we're mindful, when we develop mindfulness, our focus is on this changing. We keep calmly no change. That's a sentence that really summarizes our practice. Keep, we steadily watch, pay attention to, are aware of, are conscious of the nature of change. And we need calm because we're constantly wanting to fabricate stories. Self-view, a way of seeing whatever is arising is, well, what does this have to do with me? When we have a constancy of self-view, clearly we're not viewing otherwise. And when we're not viewing otherwise, we're like living in the inside of a box, just looking at the walls of the box. When there's a whole universe out there ready for us to explore, ready for us to live in, ready for us to open our hearts and see that and this sense of self that is so small and narrow is pinching us, squeezing us, increasing the amount of angst that we experience. And when we open up, when our view spreads wide, when we know that we are connected to everything and everything is connected to us, when we know we are flowing through this universe, and as we're flowing through this universe, the nutriment we need to survive goes with us. The air, the water, the food. It's so accessible. It's incredible how accessible it is these days. The key is to keep raising up joy, the joy of each breath, the joy with every drink of water, the joy of every time you're able to move a muscle in your body, every time you hear a sound, every time there's a taste or a smell. What a joy. What good fortune we have. And getting lost in whether or not these tastes, these smells, these sensations in the body, the thoughts, if they're unpleasant, from a narrow, in the box sense of self, it's a big deal. But from a wide open connection to the entire universe of what's occurring, of everything that's going on, and our awareness of everything going on, then the unpleasant thought is just a floating object. It's just something floating through the universe. It's unpleasant, so it's not like it's unpleasant as an unfamiliar experience. You've thrived for decades with one unpleasant thing after the other. It's not a big deal, you know. If you need to do something about it, if you realize you're sitting in an awkward position and you could move and be less uncomfortable, so move. If there's something you need to do, so do it. But to make the unpleasant the object of your focus is just making it worse. The unpleasant is natural, it occurs. When you are bound in the self, the unpleasant is very large. When you are open to the universe, the unpleasant is very small. You know, if you're visiting someone and you walk in their house and you love the way they have painted the walls and the furniture and the lamps and the everything, and you love it all. It's really great. And there's one thing you don't like at all. For some people, that one thing you don't like becomes really vivid. Maybe for the person who created that room, it drives them nuts and they're trying to figure out how to fix that or get rid of it. And they lose the beauty of the whole room. We do this all the time because we're in a narrow room called the self. And even though there are 274,000 things going on that are working quite well, we keep looking for the most prominent, unpleasant thing going on. And we make it bigger. And because we're in a small room called the self, it's easy to make big because we're already in a narrow, tight space. And then we obsess about how to fix it. You know, if you're outside watching the sunset, and it's a stunning sunset that day, the clouds, the lighting, the wind, the plants, maybe rocks and water, maybe the whole thing is just astoundingly beautiful. And your joy is in the openness. If you decide that you're going to focus on particular things, oh, right over there is a rock that used to be really nice, but some teenagers chiseled their names in it, you know, and so you're obsessed about the somebody. How dare they? How dare they ruin my experience of the sunset? They did it to me. So now you're blaming your unpleasantness instead of being open to this like wide open experience of joy. Or maybe you don't blame the teenagers who chiseled their names. Maybe you think, it's understandable. And then you blame yourself. Why am I so bothered by that? That's so silly, Brian. Focus on the big picture. And I keep moving my eyes back to the, you know. And then suddenly I'm thinking about my own teenage years and this good thing and this bad thing. And I'm not even looking at the sunset anymore. You know, I got really obsessed. I might miss the whole thing. Or I might get like so uncomfortable with where I've gone in my fabricating this story that I actually decide I'm not enjoying the sunset anymore. I leave, you know, and I start thinking about where I can go for a wonderful dinner so I can comfort myself. Ouch, ouch. This is the self. The self does this. The not self can open up wide, and the sunset and the rocks and everything else are as they are. They just are as they are. The unpleasant parts are just little small parts. The pleasantness is the wide openness of everything. The self, you know, I think I need a drink, right? It's like I'm making myself miserable. I need to do something to stop making myself miserable. You know, the most effective, long lasting way to stop making yourself miserable is clear seeing, seeing clearly what's true. And the path to clear seeing is the practice of mindfulness, paying attention to what's occurring in this very moment, paying attention to the mind state that we're bringing with us into this moment, paying attention to the feeling tone, the pleasant or unpleasant that is aroused by the contact that we're experiencing. Knowing all this, being mindful of all this, this is our practice. So let's do this. Let's practice mindfulness.